Hello, everyone. Welcome once again. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nora Diadel, the founder of Journey Healing Legacy and the moderator of the group Hospice and End of Life Care group on Facebook. I would like to introduce a special guest today, Dr. Mark Sehl. He is going to be sharing his story of grief and loss and how he's coped or is coping with his loss in his life. And he's been kind enough to take time out of his busy schedule and share his time with us and his experience and his testimony, which we are very appreciative. A little bit about Mr. Sehl. He is a psychotherapist. He is in New York, and he works with group therapy. He teaches psychotherapy. He does Skype sessions, not only nationwide, but also internationally. And that is always a wonderful tool to have for those of us who are far and we find someone we resonate with. And I think that's wonderful, the work that you do, Dr. Sehl. So Dr. Sehl, again, thank you for joining us. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that you are extremely busy. So please do share with us your story.
Okay, thank you very much for introducing me and giving me the opportunity to be here with you, Sonora. That's very nice of you, and thank you. You introduced me as doing group therapy and teaching psychotherapy, but I also, of course, do individual therapy as well. My experience that I'm thinking about today, I've had many losses in my life, but the most current one is that of Dr. Jerry Lucas. He was a very important person to me. I studied with him for 15 years. He was a mentor to me, a teacher, and every Saturday we would meet in his classroom and he would instruct us as to how to best work with patients. And I also do the same thing now, modeling his what he did with me in my own groups every other Tuesday evening. So he really gave me a lot. So I'm giving back to many people what I absorbed from him. About 2012, I began to take videos of him. And I'm saying this because the loss wasn't immediate. But as after the videos were taken, because he liked them and we used to watch them together, a number of years later, he started to develop dementia after I started the original videos. And I had to stop therapy with him because of his increasing dementia. So I talked to him about stopping, and it was very difficult for me. I had some irrational guilt about it, not rational, but irrational guilt about it. So I stopped therapy with him. And I continued to see him, though, as a friend. We became friends, and I visited him every Friday, and we called it Mark and Jerry's Day. So every Friday I went to his home, and we would go out to lunch together. We would have lunch there. And one of the particular reasons why I did it was that there was some indication that from others that he might not be able to live in his home. He'd have to be in a nursing home. So by my going there, I could show that he was very active with me. We're having lunch together. He was doing exercises with me. So I really provided a certain degree of safety for him to remain in his house.
I'm sorry, Dr. Sell, may I ask you a question? So was he a patient of yours or was he a friend?
As I said before, he was an instructor. He was my psychoanalyst. Thanks for asking, because maybe that wasn't clear. He was my
Sure.
psychoanalyst.
Oh,
He was a teacher to me.
I see.
He was
Okay.
a mentor.
Mentor, right.
So he was many all these things to me for 15 years before he died. So I took videos of then, as I was saying, I began to visit him after his dementia was very severe, because I missed him and I loved him and I wanted him to know that he had somebody there. He had a few people there. Some of the students would visit him occasionally, but for the most part, they dropped away after his dementia was obvious. So he died in May of 2015 on
Oh,
Mother's Day.
oh wow. Yeah,
Maybe it was on
that's very
yeah.
close to my mother. My mother died April 7th, 2015.
Very
Very
close.
close.
Yeah. So that was a very difficult time for me because of all he was to me. Um, I coped with his loss by thinking about it and allowing myself to. So when I would make sure I thought about him and let myself experience the intense grief. Um, it was such a loss for me. So I would think about him. I'd cry a lot about him. One of my patients helped me with my grief because she sent me that I worked with somebody outside of the United States in Canada, and on the day of his death, um, on Mother's Day, she sent me a Valentine's box of chocolate covered. Wasn't Valentine's. It was just a gift box of chocolate
Yeah.
covered strawberries. So what she said to me in her email was, you know, you must be heartbroken. And she really hit it right on the head. And no one, even close people to me, didn't say anything like that. You must be heartbroken, because I think when people think of it, your psychoanalyst dies, they
Yeah.
don't they don't think about it in the same way as your parent dies or your lover dies. It's a little different in their minds. And until maybe they have an analyst that died and they were very close to, it's hard to say, well, what's the big deal? You know, that's your psychoanalyst. But your psychoanalyst becomes so many things to you over the course of your treatment: parent figure, a friend, you know, feelings of friendship, feelings of love.
The
So it's very
bond,
different.
the healthy bond you may have
Yes,
never had. And that's very sad.
very true. That you never had, because he was like
Yes.
in the recent write-up I did on LinkedIn, he was the good mother parenting figure that allowed me to say what everything that was on my mind and didn't judge me, um, didn't ever make me feel uncomfortable or about what I had to say. So
Now,
his ability.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but one question: was he in hospice care or
No, he died at home.
just suddenly?
Well, it wasn't sudden. It was coming on for a long time. He was disappearing. He
Yeah.
just kept disappearing in front of my face when I was with him. And one of the things that was such a difficult for me to observe, we used to look at videos together of that I made of him that are on YouTube. You could check. You can go
Oh
into
yeah.
YouTube and go to Mark Sehl and Dr. Jerry Lucas, and you'll find the videos there of him. What was the most difficult thing was he used to enjoy looking at these videos because I talked about how he talked about how he met his wife, how he grew up in Brooklyn, what he taught.
So you were
The
doing some legacy work with him, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And the sorrowful thing is that one day we were looking at the videos, and he said to me, he said, you know, Mark, I don't recognize that person. So here,
I know.
and that was very difficult for him and for me, because all of a sudden, I mean, he had this identity. He was very proud that he was famous on the internet, you know. And so it meant everything to him, and he couldn't remember now who he was. He didn't say, "I don't recognize that person," and he said, "I'm not a person." So it's. I mean, this is a terrible thing that happens to people when they have dementia. So it was very difficult for me, for him, and I was fortunate enough to be in his hold in my arms the night before he died. His family called me, and so I went right over, and yeah, so that that's Dr. Jerry Lucas, and he will always be in my heart. And in some way, I'll miss that I mourn him.
Of course. I
I mean,
know.
that sounds crazy
No,
because
because
I've
sometimes it causes. I've heard people. I mean, like my grandfather had dementia too, and I saw him declining. It was really sad. I felt like he wasn't there anymore for so many years, and it was very sad, very very heart wrenching. But that's another story for another day. But I really can relate, and I know a lot of people who will be watching this show will be able to relate with you on that pain of losing someone to dementia. It's very painful to watch that cognitive decline they go through. It
one
is.
one thing though that what I feel like is important to stress is that even in his worst times of dementia, I continually talked to him and I reminded him of who he was, even though he forgot. So I would remind him of all the students that he was able to teach therapy to, all the impact that he had on people and helping them with their problems throughout his life. And I would keep going over and over and over that. And suddenly, when I was be talking to him, he seemed as if he was not there.
No,
But
they're
all of a
there. Yeah.
sudden, but all of a sudden, he would say yes. Oh, he would mention somebody's name, a patient that he treated in India. He would
Wow.
just come out like that. And one teacher who saw these, he wasn't my teacher, he was his teacher at NYU, happened to see the videos on YouTube for some reason. He clicked into them and he said, Mark, he said, I saw them, but it was sad. He had his eyes closed. And I said, but if you notice the end of the video, he said to me, he said, we're trying to establish the connection we had with each other. We are trying to establish a connection, the connection that we have with each other. So he was
That's
hearing all that. I'm just,
no. I understand. I
he really was there. And then I think people know this, but
yeah.
that's why you see in the movies people talking to people when they're out of it, but they're talking to them because some sense there is a connection that something's being heard, even though there's no obvious response. So I think that's so important to remember for people out there. It's important for me to remember about him, and also in my memory that there was something that was happening all along, and it wasn't so observable, by me, but he did give me signals all the way through. He held my hand at the end. One of the pictures of our holding hands
I saw
together.
that.
Yeah. And
That's
what's
beautiful.
important for me too to remember, this was only a part of his life. This was 6 months or a year, but he had a much bigger life than that. And I
I'm
tend to
sure.
forget that sometimes because he lived to be 90. And in those 90 years, he did so many things to help so many people. So the impact of mention was terrible, but that wasn't the whole picture. There was a bigger picture.
Um, I found a quote, um, and I don't know if you saw it or not, or if I even posted it on LinkedIn or not. But I'd like to share it with you because it has to do with dementia
Sure.
and Alzheimer's. It touched me when I saw it, so I saved it. It says, "When nights are sleepless and days disjointed, when stares are blank and language broken, when memory is fading and faces unfamiliar, it is hard to be thankful. Those of us who are Alzheimer's or dementia caregivers know this all too well. The challenge, I believe, lies in our ability to see hidden colors, turning shades in the lives of those we love. Only mourning the loss of spring green will lead to winter's death, a darkening of spirit which blinds us to the blessings that are falling all around us. Sometimes it takes the chill of death to awaken us to life in the moment. That's where real living occurs. After all, as we make the most of the colors of each day." in some great mystery, then all seasons contribute to the majesty that is life.
That was beautiful.
It just came to me when you were talking, and I thought I let me share that with you. And can I ask you? I know that you are an intellectual being, and you are a psycho therapist yourself, but still you have a heart, chest, and you have feelings, and I would imagine for you, it probably is even harder than somebody who isn't playing that role in society. Because I mean, where did you go? Did you seek counseling for grief? What were some of your coping mechanisms? Because honestly, I can look at you.
I'll tell you what I did.
I can
was
see you're still grieving. Just like I know I'm still grieving.
that'll never stop in a way. There'll always be there, the grieving, and that's fine with me.
It's
I was
change of life.
crying. I was crying every night, and now I'm crying every other night. So what? That's. I mean, and if that wasn't the case, it signifies an attachment that I had to him, and that's great. That's okay. Grief is fine, and being a therapist all these years. I am very accustomed and welcoming my feelings. I welcome them because if we didn't have depression, if we couldn't live with that, we couldn't see the joy on the other side. And they are all
Yes.
together. They're all together. So I think that my being a therapist, though, helped me understand. I mean, my own unique approach to therapy is very different than other therapists, and I accept our mutual love between us after the therapy ended, that he could love me and I could love him. And before that, somebody wrote into me on LinkedIn, and she gave me a story in reference to me writing about Dr. Lucas, and she said that in her thesis, they made her take out the part where she was talking about the mothering that she experienced from her therapist. They made her take out that part from the dissertation.
Ridiculous. That's like the most important part.
There you go. So me, I've been studying for years, and I am very familiar with. I'm very comfortable with all the feelings I have with my patients, and it's not that it doesn't mean that love is going to cure. It doesn't cure people, but it does mean the feelings of love and caring are a substantial part of what makes people get better and what makes them hang in there for therapy. If they didn't feel cared about or loved in some way, they're not going to stay in therapy, because that's
No.
something that they never have really kind of experienced before, about being cared for in that very unique, non-judgmental way, that you're
Right.
accepted without judgment.
It's that relationship that you build and the trust that you build with that therapist that sets you free. If I'm not mistaken, from a lot of things.
Well, it sets
Right?
you free. It sets you free to accept yourself, because we carry on so much. We carry in I think so much shame
Yes.
related to how we're brought up and being judged and admonished. And you talk too much. You don't talk enough. Don't dare do that. Don't dare say that. So that's why when one day I walked into Dr. Lucas's office, and I was sick and tired of lying down. Lying down is good because it helps you free up your unconscious. But I walked in that room and I stood there, and he stood up, and he stood there, and he stood there, and I stood there, and I stood there. It was a moment for me of standing up for myself and defiance. And he never said a word to me about it. He didn't ask me why I was doing that. He didn't say to lay down.
He
And then I went
accepted.
he accepted it. And when I went down, I laid on the couch, and he sat down at that moment. And that's what a great man he was. And I hopefully have become somewhat near that capacity within me to be that accepting and that cognizant of what other person's needs are at the time, rather than just being a robot like some analysts can be, because they are so wedded to their theoretical,
Yes.
like that woman's dissertation committee or whatever it was. Take that out.
Yes.
My goodness, take that out.
Unfortunately, we are not only a death phobic society, but we are are a society that denies a lot of things, and that is a great example of being in denial. And it's really a serious thing. I mean, being able to grief and bereavement and loss, it's just not given enough value. I feel in our society, it's not I mean, by employers or life here in our present day society does not allow us time to even properly grieve our losses, and that can be really and you will probably agree to this because um, I I myself work for a psychiatrist. He's a Harvard graduate, and um, you know, I know that we stopped taking patients in because we were so overloaded, and people would call in such despair, and you wonder why our health system is the way it is. I mean, mental health specialists like yourself, I mean, they're so overloaded, and the need for mental health is growing every day more and more. Now, how do I tie this into the subject of death and dying? Well, if we're not given proper attention to the point where bereavement services are not even covered by Medicare and so forth, and it's such an important part of one's life. So, I mean, how can that just be looked over? Okay, I mean, life goes on, and you expect the person to be like a robot, just come right back to work. What happens to all those feelings? They suppress it. People have to pay their bills. They have to continue to live and be a mother or be a father, whatever roles they're playing in their lives, stay strong for the people around them, so on and so forth. But what happens to their grief? When we
I'm
live in a
curious.
society,
I'm curious if in Europe if they have any kind of paid leave when
they
someone
do.
dies.
They do.
They do.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And they are very much more supportive of such things. Not only death, but of a woman who's like pregnant and she gets paid time off for a couple of months like that. That's wonderful. Why shouldn't we have that?
Right.
But
Absolutely true.
yeah, it's really a big dilemma, and who knows? I guess all we can do is try, and
Maybe someday.
yeah, maybe in our generation. Well, one thing I always say is death knows no time, no age, no place. It's very powerful, and it's a very important journey, if not the most important journey in a being's life.
Hmm.
Just like birth, so is death.
Yeah.
We talk about birth. Why can't we talk about death?
Well, we're doing that right now.
Exactly.
Thanks to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sehl. It was really a pleasure to talk with you and hear this touching story. It really touched my heart. And I would like to, if you would allow me to share some of Dr. Lucas's videos that you made on our YouTube site.
Certainly, you can do that. You just go to Mark Sehl. If you Google Mark Sehl, Jerry Lucas YouTube, you'll find a playlist there of all the videos that I did while he was more spirited and just, and then as he became struck down with dementia, we had their videos of us going out to lunch, me taking him to the Jewish Museum for the exhibit there, the Chagall exhibit, and
Yeah, I saw.
yeah, and singing, and we went to Barney Greengrass. It's a New York very popular restaurant, and so I would take him there quite frequently. And one day we walked in, and I had all the waitress staff come around the table and sing him happy birthday.
He really was. He played many roles in your life, Dr. Sehl. He played the maternal, the paternal, the brother, the best friend, the mentor, the hero.
Many.
Yeah, and
Of course, that was after we stopped treatment, but I was lucky enough to be able to. I don't know, lucky is a word for just have it in me to want to continue to see him because
good.
I just didn't want him to be alone, and not that he was alone, but I wanted to be part of a company for him
Yeah.
because I could remind him of who he was when he failed to do that for himself. So
My
Barney
curiosity.
Greenbass was it was like wonderful. He felt so good about hearing everybody. It wasn't his birthday; it didn't matter. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
just
I do.
fun. We had fun. So, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, my question is, did he ever forget you? Or
Yes.
he did?
Mhm. But I was one of the ones. I was somebody in his life who he forgot least. I think because
Mhm.
for some he had AIDS that was stayed with him, and I think they said that I was the only one that he would let feed him.
That's
I'm
so
sure that,
special.
but they could feed him. But there was something that they recognized as a very important connection that we had together. That it was very separate from other people and individualized and caring, and I knew that because I could tell by the way he was responded to me. And he would remember things that we talked about, and he remembered that patient's name in India. He said, oh, you mean," and that person
So
actually
and so.
he came and visited, and I have a video of that person visiting him from India. He came all the way to India to see Dr. Lucas, to say hello to him because he knew he was being he knew, and I met this person not through Dr. Lucas but through a conference that I went
Mhm.
to. He came up to me and said, I recognize you. You have the videos of Dr. Lucas. I'm a patient of his. And so was my mother.
Oh,
So was my
wow.
mother.
It's like as if everything is just planned
Mm,
in such perfection.
yeah.
Well, he was a great loss in the material world. I don't know. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, but um, I don't know what awaits us on the other side. I don't know if there's another side, but I do believe that there's much more than this body. This is just, I feel, clothing of something so much stronger, and I'm sure he is in a better place definitely than we are. And like they say, I don't know if he was buried or cremated. You didn't mention that part, but
What? Very what?
if he was buried or cremated.
I don't know because there wasn't much ado about his funeral that I could see. So I mean, I'm not sure why. I suspect he was cremated, but I don't know. I really don't know.
You didn't go to his funeral?
There wasn't any service as
Oh,
far as I could see. We
uh,
we we were trying to get a group of people, of therapists, to have a memorial for him, myself and another colleague, and we just couldn't work it out to have a memorial. So I'm not sure what the family did. If whatever, I know there was a funeral parlor, and I signed up for it and I wrote in on it. You know how you can write in.
yes,
So I did that, but I didn't. I didn't catch, and nor was notified of any formally notified of any religious service for him or any service. So I don't know what happened.
wow. Doesn't that impact you?
No,
Okay.
because I know what we had together, and I know all that time I spent with him. I really didn't need a service to
Yeah,
resolve anything. You know what I mean? It's like
I
I
do.
saw I saw him dying in front of me.
Mhm.
I don't know how many days every Friday he was dying a little bit at a time, and that sunk in. So almost it was like a service would be a moot point.
Yeah.
I don't
Me,
know if you know what
he's
I
not
mean?
there anymore. I completely understand. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
also I saw him dying every time I visit. He would die a little bit, just was
that,
so that
what's higher than that? What's more special than that to hold on to it?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you were there at the essence, at the most important point
right,
in his life when he was going to
right.
transition into something
Yeah,
new.
so it would have been nice to talk to people about and share memories, but we did never got around to do that. And I did it with people who I knew who saw the videos, and they called me up and they said, "Thank you so much for having those videos because I haven't seen Dr. Lucas in a long time." So they looked at the videos and then they understood he died, and they could go back and like revisit his life by looking at the videos with that. So that was pretty special.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very lovely work you did. I mean, you did legacy work for him.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about it. That's true. That's true. It was giving him a history. Yeah.
Yes. It's such a rich story. I mean, you could go on all day talking about him.
Well,
I
we won't
feel
do
that
that
he
now
was.
because we both have to go. I have to go. I know, and
I know.
I know you have to. So
Thank you
many
so
things that you
much.
have to do. You're welcome. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I really appreciate the fact that you shared with us, and
Mhm.
I hope that in the future we can share some more.
Well, let's do that. We see each other a lot on contact with LinkedIn
Yes,
too. It's so
yes,
and thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it to be here today,
pleasure.
and thanks for everybody out there for listening to in advance and say hello. You have my contact information. You can also
Yes,
subscribe to the channel Therapy for the Heart, or you just go to Mark Sehl on YouTube, and if you want to subscribe, and you can make comments on the channel too. If you want to go to Dr. Lucas's videos and make a comment on whatever videos you see, you can do that, but you have to have a Gmail account. So
yes,
that's just
that's
yeah.
wonderful.
But
Thank you so
yeah,
much for sharing that,
okay, you're
Dr.
welcome.
Sal.
Okay,
Yes, okay.
take care.
Let's keep in touch. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.